Before we get started, just a quick note, spoiler alert.
And we are adults, and I will try very hard not to use adult language, but this is the warning.
Hi, and welcome to Last Library on the Left. My name is Jennifer.
And I'm Sedina. We're a horror review and discussion podcast where we talk about horror in books, movies, and other formats, why we seek it out, and why we need it in our lives.
Today's episode is our last one before 31 days.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh, it's coming up so fast.
I know, right?
Oh my gosh, can't wait. So today, the last episode before 31 days, we will be talking about boundaries again, but this time we're focused on true horror and true crime. I'm excited.
Me too. I'm excited because it came to me while watching one of the shows that we're going to talk about. The anxiety, I was sitting in my couch and I was like anxious to get up and walk around because I started to have those triggered emotions and memories of some of my own incidents. And I was like, this is why these things are important, because it helped my brain run through scenarios to prep for the thing that I eventually had to prep for.
Yes. So I guess we'll just go right into it and start off with our first true crime, which I was completely obsessed over. The Slender Man stabbing. So for those that don't know, the Slender Man stabbing occurred in 2014 during a sleepover when 12-year-old girls, Morgan and Anissa, stabbed their friend Peyton after luring her into the woods. They were found hours later by police and said that they were on their way to live with Slender Man.
Just bananas.
And for those that don't know who Slender Man is, it's a fictional entity that was created in 2009 in a Photoshop contest.
He was a digitally born spook.
Yeah, and the online fanfic is what helped, I guess, build his digital urban legend almost.
Yeah.
And I just remember hearing about it on the radio thinking, who in the F is Slender Man?
Although some of those pictures are really good because it wasn't just
Yeah.
the one time, that was
Right.
first entry, but then people later continue to doctor photos, and some of them are doctored really well.
Yeah, some of them are really good. Because at first, when I was Googling Slender Man, I thought, oh, this is something that someone maybe saw. They were high one night and they were in the woods and they saw someone that vaguely resembled this, or they were drunk and their mind was playing tricks on them. And he looked really creepy. But no, it's just an online urban legend. I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah, which is actually the bulk of the laughter.
We laugh because we are uncomfortable.
It's just because I'm uncomfortable and I'm awkward.
Yeah. I think that's our coping mechanism. But yeah, the Slender Man thing, that was really horrific. The girl Peyton, she ended up making through, and I think she went back to school and finished school. Oh God, it's so scary. And just thinking about what these girls, how deep did they get into the Slender Man lore where they started to believe it? They're 12, they're impressionable.
Well, and I think only one of them really needed to get into it because it sounded to me like they were suffering from the rare psychosis disorder, folie à deux, where one person's madness infects the other.
Well, I mean, they're 12. They're so impressionable. So yeah,
Right.
completely believable. And I think that's where the horror in it just, because yeah, it's horrific, but the fact that they're so young and they had such access to the full internet to explore Slender Man is so scary.
Yeah, when I think about, okay, first off, I'm well aware that the internet was around before I had access to it, but my household did not have access to the internet until I was about 15. 14 at the earliest, but definitely not before high school because we just didn't have the funds or the means. So even the internet that I interacted with at 15, 14 was not like, how do you get that? But the internet was also fairly wild way back in like the 90s and 2000s. So like, how did you at 12, what were you doing? I don't know. The computer was in my room at my mom's house, and I was definitely on the internet for hours late into the night and was on sites that I shouldn't have been. But I was such a normal person. This is like the one place I was normal. I was reading like anime fan fiction, and that's it.
See, I didn't have internet access until I was, I think, late in my senior year of high school. And the computer was in the living room where everyone was.
Smart.
We had the net zero free disc. So you just weren't on it. You just couldn't be on it because mom had to have the phone.
You remember how you would turn on the dial up to dial in, and then you would eat and then shower and then you could log in?
I know. So it was just so inconvenient. So you just didn't use the internet back then. And then mostly I used it to download music. And then to update my MySpace. I really didn't do much with the internet back then.
Oh my god, it was so easy to download things.
It was so easy. It was so easy. I
I
mean,
still have discs and discs of pirate. Well. Let me shut my mouth. Just kidding. Just kidding,
just
y'all.
kidding. We have nothing. The internet was super slow. You couldn't download anything, okay? It was just really creepy just thinking about those two girls. Like you said, it could have been just one, and thinking about how impressionable they were. But it also got me thinking about how damaging misinformation is. How it's not just politics, it's everywhere and it's anything, and it could be anything because the internet can't be trusted.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
It's so terrifying. It's really creepy. I don't know. There was just something about that whole case that really, but I can't even bring myself to watch a documentary.
Wait, when did you get pregnant with Aurora?
I delivered her in 2014. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, no wonder it hit you so hard.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
were about to be a parent.
I didn't even think about
Girl.
that.
I think that's really why it hits you so hard. I don't remember being all that. I remember thinking like, wow, the internet is a dangerous place, but it also is your responsibility as a caregiver to monitor your child on a place like the internet. But if I had been pregnant, I absolutely would have been viewing that through a different lens.
True, because when the Momo thing came out on YouTube, so okay, I believed it and I kept looking at YouTube to try to find it. I could never find it. I couldn't find the specific clip, and all I saw from people were, I know someone who has seen it. It was never
Right.
someone that I knew. I couldn't fully believe it, but even now, my daughter can't watch YouTube unless I'm there, because while we didn't see Momo, I did see, she's one of those kids that likes to watch when other people play with their toys on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
That Ryan kid, you know?
I don't know who that is. I understand what you mean. The people who like to watch people clean or cook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on YouTube, she likes to watch other kids play with their toys and do the imaginary play. I guess that like helps fuel her imagination. I don't know the appeal to it.
I didn't realize that that's what that was. I mean, I barely get the cleaning one. I get the cooking one, obviously.
Right. Same. But one day she was watching it, and I'm always there when she watches it. And she's like, oh, I want to watch this one. And she's scrolling through, and I see a thumbnail, and it's Peppa Pig's mom's head on a table, blood everywhere. And I was like, well, that's not. No. So there is questionable things on YouTube, but I never saw Momo. And so her YouTube play is, she doesn't watch YouTube anymore just because it's just so freaky.
Back in the day when you could just upload anything to YouTube too. Man, YouTube was like a game changer.
Yeah, it really was.
That's how I discovered a lot of music.
Man, I remember I used to just upload nonsense to YouTube, and I'm like, why did I do that? Like,
oh, that's hilarious. I was always a lurker. I mean, I'm still kind of a lurker, but I watched YouTube for like anime music videos so that I could get spoilers and new music recommendations. Well, I am such a nerd.
That is so funny. No, I would go to concerts and I'd record and then I'd upload it. I don't know why anyone needed to see any of my concert footage, because it's not like the sound was great.
What we're saying, guys, is that we have a different experience growing up with the internet than kids these days.
Yeah, we do.
And it's tripping us up.
Yeah, I just don't get how, I mean, I understand how they were allowed to use the internet on their own, because I think for a while their parents just assumed that everything was, I don't know. I don't want to say anything about their parents because I don't know their situation, but it's just so scary that they're so impressionable and able to, one, get information on Slenderman, but enough to believe in Slenderman to the point where they would sacrifice their friend. So
Yeah.
that was a crazy one. But jumping right into the next one, unless you have anything else to say about Slenderman.
When you mentioned that you want to talk about Slenderman, I was like, wow, really? And then I realized you were pregnant with Aurora. That's where that's coming from.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that until you said it. And I should have, because like I sit here wrote 2014 knowing full well I gave birth that year. But I don't know. I
Well,
guess
and
it
you were
just
a single pregnant mom, you know? I'm sure somewhere in the back of your mind, you were constantly obsessing about what this thing is going to become and what they are going to do and what they're going to be exposed to and how
Mhm.
you can mediate that on your own.
Yeah.
You know, that would be terrifying to
It's
find out
so
about while you're
scary.
pregnant.
Yeah. Oh my God. And not even that, just the whole idea of like there's this human being that's going to be walking around the world. And how do you navigate that? Ugh. Ugh. Why'd I do that? I don't know. I wasn't ready. I'm still scared.
She's a good kid. I think you're doing well so far.
Thank you. She is a pretty good kid, even though she hits me with the attitude lately. Okay, well, we'll just go ahead and move on into the next one, which I haven't watched, but I think it's because of your review when you
Oh,
watched it
God.
that I won't watch it.
Yeah, I was panic texting you,
You were.
y'all.
And I was like, I'm never watching this. So we're talking about Alan v. Farrow, which debuted in 2021 on HBO. And it's an American documentary television miniseries that explores the allegation of sexual abuse made against Woody Allen in 1992.
It messed me up pretty bad watching it. There are so many instances of that documentary, the interviews with the sitters, some of the taped audio phone conversations, they blew my mind. And they shouldn't have, because Alan comes off as very deceitful, manipulative, grotesque, opportunistic.
Ooh.
He's like every trait under toxic masculinity and misogyny, that was him. And the way that Farrow, in her life experiences and her early situations, kind of, I know what that feels like to have someone, maybe not my own experience, that you're in love with, but somebody that you think you should be able to trust. And then everyone around you seeing the version of this person that they put on and them trying to convince you that you're wrong. And so you allow this abuse to go on, or you allow all the red flags to go by, and you're like, no, that can't be, like, I'm overreacting. And it was so distressing. And then I think it was the sound recordings from the phone calls that got me. That was when I actually had to pause and step away and go and think about some of my own experiences, because you hear them on the documentary and you're like, that's clearly a red flag. That's clearly a garbage excuse for oxygen intake. This is terrible. And I was like, how did I miss those signs in my own life?
Yeah.
And you can't blame Farrow. You can't even blame the kids who have completely rearranged everything allegedly in their own minds. Because the son, one of the adoptive sons, he spoke out against Alan and the abuse for years.
Oh,
and
wow.
then only recently has he been like, oh no, that never happened. Farrow's overreacting. He would never do those things. And it's like, what did he buy you off with?
Yeah.
You know? What did he do or say to make you change? There was an alleged possibility of abuse on like the son too. I don't know. It was just, and then it makes me think about all the trauma that children go through that internalize it or think that it's okay, or it warps their perception of relationships later. And it's just the unhealthy. You don't even understand how much it messes you up until years and years later. And then maybe you see it happening to someone else and you're like, well, now I know it's bad. Why didn't I know it was bad with me?
Right, yeah. To think of a child having to deal with this, it breaks my heart. I mean, no child should have to deal with. Children should just be children.
And Farrow's experiences too were really upsetting, because I kept thinking about my mom and her marriage to my father and what that must have looked like from the outside, and what she must have been thinking inside of the relationship before it got to the point, because they were married after my mom passed away. I had to fill out her marriage history so that they could track down heirs or anybody else that could have a say on the estate. And that was when I found out that my parents had been married far longer than I ever assumed. I had always just thought that they had gotten married. She got pregnant almost immediately, and then my dad beat the ever loving shit out of her, and then she left him. And that is not what happened. They were together for like 6 years.
Oh, wow.
And I had heard stories where he would come home and beat her in broad daylight in the front lawn,
Oh
and
my
nobody would
God.
report it.
Wow.
It's like one of those instances where watching this documentary, I was thinking about the outsiders who saw these things happen, because we all see those things. We talk about it. That's how
Mhm.
gossip happens.
Mhm,
You
mhm.
know, we talk shit all the time.
Yeah.
And it made me wonder, like, how do people go through their lives just turning a blind eye? And I was like, but my family did it for years.
It reminds me of this book that I read by Colleen Hoover. I think it's called It Ends With Us. And
Mm,
it's about a girl who you see her in present day, but you also get memories from when she was younger and her dad beating her mom. And she ends up in an abusive relationship herself. And she's like talking to her mom because like dad has died. And she's talking to her mom and she's like, I don't understand how I got to this place. And her mom is like trying to tell her, like, please get out now because you're eventually going to get to the point where he's only going to slap you as opposed to like beating you, like you said, within an inch of your life. And you're going to be like, oh, he just
mhm.
hit me. It's not that bad. And it's like, that is bad, you
Yeah.
know? So it was a good book, but I've never witnessed anything like that. I've never seen it in action, but I almost feel like just myself being myself. I feel like I would report it. I would rather report it and save that woman's life than
Mm,
to turn a blind eye and be like, I hope that he changes. Like, because I don't think he will.
yeah.
It's just really scary.
Yeah, I've definitely reported neighbors before for
Yeah.
hearing abuse, but I like don't know what I would do in the situation myself because I would like to think that I wouldn't let it get to that point, that I
Yeah.
wouldn't let those red flags happen, but you never know until it actually happens to you.
hmm
That's part of the frightening thing too about this documentary is that you just don't know what you would do.
Yeah, my previous relationship was there was never any physical abuse, but there was a lot of emotional and mental abuse. And it's just as bad, I feel, because
Hmm.
my daughter is almost 7 and I still haven't fully like 100% recovered from it. And I
Mm,
think that it's because you always say, like, I'm never going to be in that situation. And I always say, I'm never going to be in that situation. I didn't realize I was in that situation until she was born.
exactly.
And now I'm like, holy cow, I'm going to make sure I don't ever get into that again. I'm going to make sure I build her up so that she'll never ever get into that situation. But like you said, you ignore those red flags
Hmm.
early on, which now I'm like, Jennifer, you were so blind. Like, how did you not see it?
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
Well, and
Props to your mom for getting out of it.
yes, props to my mom, but
Mm.
also I did find out from my bubby before she passed that one of the reasons why my family never intervened with my
Mm-hmm.
father was that my mom eloped right out of high school. She eloped with a much older man, and the family was not happy about
Yeah.
this, not supportive, constantly trying to tear the relationship apart. And their relationship eventually fell apart for probably lots of reasons.
Right.
You know, the short of our family not being supportive and trying to tear it apart in general. So when my mom met my dad and started seeing him and everything was fine, I mean, he like really didn't show his true colors until
Mhm.
later. There were stories because he beat my brother's mom and all sorts of other
Yeah.
stuff, but it wasn't until they were together and things were really bad when my family was like, but if she says she loves him and she doesn't want our help, because like my mom went into a deep depression after her first divorce. I mean, to the point where like the family thought they would lose her.
Yeah.
And they thought that allowing her to stay in an abusive relationship that she said she could handle was better for her life than going to tear her away from yet another relationship.
Wow. That's a rock in a hard place if I've ever heard one.
Right. For a long time, I didn't get it. And I was like, now I kind of do. If
Mm-hmm.
you, as a parent, almost lost your child because of depression and heartbreak, and it was partially your fault, why would you take that risk again?
Right. Oh my God. That's such a rough. I don't know what I would do in that situation.
Yeah. So I think watching this documentary, a lot of it was so triggering for me. And I
Mhm.
really pushed through because I'd kind of heard the story growing up, you know, about
Mhm.
like this old man, actor, director person who married his adoptive daughter. And I remember thinking,
Mhm.
like, that's gross. That child needs help.
Yeah.
But watching it in the documentary, I was like, it was so much worse.
Yeah.
That headline did not do it justice.
I'm not one for Wikipedia, but I read the wiki on it and I was like, oh no.
It was wild. And
It's disturbing.
I was not okay.
I get it. I get it. Cause I just, from your text while you were watching it, I couldn't. And I can't remember what I was watching at the time. It was either the Myrtle Beach one
Mm.
I was watching or Unbelievable. One of the two. Cause I was watching something equally heart wrenching and just triggering. And I was like, no, I just can't do it. And I won't do it now.
That's fair.
Yeah.
No.
We know that boundary.
Mm-hmm.
Well, moving on to another boundary that I didn't realize I had, but I think we both kind of have this boundary a little bit. Serial killers, we don't really follow them as closely as people would think we would.
Yeah, I do like true crime, but this one in particular that you're going to talk about, even when I listen to bits and pieces of it and other podcasts, are really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
The 2-parter, I think, that Christine did on And
Mm-hmm.
That's Why We Drink was really frustrating to listen to and very
Yeah.
terrible.
So, if you haven't guessed, we're talking about Night Stalker, The Hunt for a Serial Killer, and it was a docu-series that released in 2021 on Netflix, and it's about Richard Ramirez, aka the Night Stalker. And if you want to know all about him and you don't want to watch the docu-series, like Sedina said, just listen to And That's Why We Drink. It's a 2-part series. It's like one of their more recent episodes, and Christine covers true crime and she did it justice. So, I don't follow too many serial killers. I know their names and I know for the most part what they've done, but I don't follow them like other people follow them.
One of our coworkers, Amanda, she's really big into true crime,
Mhm.
really big. She's the person you want to go to if you need to hide a body.
Mhm.
And I like it, but I'm definitely not as into it as the spookier things and other horror type stuff.
Mhm.
Like, it took me months to finish, and I'll Be Gone in the Dark.
I don't think I've ever consumed that one.
That one's, it was Iran's, which was East Area
The East Area
rapist.
Rapist.
Yeah. And then the guy got caught because of a genealogy thing.
Yeah. And he
That
was
was
recently, I
wild.
think, convicted. I don't follow them. And I think, like you, it's just so triggering because this happens to real people. So I think that's why for me, it's just not as interesting. It's true horror. So I don't
Yeah.
want to be around the true stuff. I like to use horror as a form of escape. So I don't ever do this. But what got me.
Just as equally kind of messed up, but different.
Yeah, it is. This really happened? I'm not about that life. Give me the fake stuff.
Yeah.
So, like I said, I've never been one for these types of cases, but the reason why I watched this documentary was thank you to American Horror Story 1984, which was a throwback to 80s slashers and very campy. And in it, they had the Night Stalker character, and I was like, oh, well, he's interesting. And the actor who played him did a really great job because I don't know, like I was just like, he just doesn't seem that bad. Like because
And
things
that's the scariest part about
right?
serial killers, is that you're like, oh, he can't be that bad.
No, he can't be that bad. So when the docu-series came, I was like, oh, I'm watching that for sure. And I watched it and I was like, oh no. What did I do to myself? Because it was really scary. He was really scary because his victims, there were no two that were alike. Young and old, boys and girls, married couples.
Mhm.
It wasn't always murder, it was rape. There was no MO. He was just random and very scary. And at the time, I think it was him, the East Area rapist. That's so scary. But they mentioned in the documentary that he was active during the time that a lot of other people were active too. And it was just really, really scary. There were like several times when the authorities almost got him, but he slipped
Mhm.
away. And the movie couldn't have written itself better. It was just super scary. And then there's one core part in there that gives me nightmares. And it's where they slow zoom into him looking into the camera.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm just like, no. I know that this man is dead, but he can see inside my soul.
From the trial date where he was
Yeah.
Yes, that's a very, very famous. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen that picture so many times,
Mhm.
but it was literally that zoom in, and I was like, mm-mm. And I looked away, thinking like he's for sure looking at me, like almost like we were having a staring contest. I mean, we laughed, but I was terrified.
I'm
And
gonna
it didn't
get
help that
it.
I had just finished watching the documentary The Cecil.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, so I was already freaked out as it was. That was a
one messed
really
me
good
up.
one.
The thing that actually scares me about the Night Stalker case is not his wild range of victims and abuses. It's actually how often the cops had him. They
Mhm.
basically had him, but
Mhm.
they would, or oh my God, there was like bad crime scene handling. One of the
Mhm.
guys, the main main detective or whatever, they were like, oh, you haven't even put in enough time in the field, so what do you know what you're talking about? And it's like, that's literally where you're drawing your conclusion from.
Yeah.
Is not the evidence. It's he doesn't have street cred, he doesn't have tenure. That's y'all aren't professors, you're fucking cops.
Yeah.
Do your damn job. Oh my god.
It was insane. The part where they're at the dentist office and they have the police. Oh, we're wasting police.
He came in the next day. The next, y'all.
And it was guaranteed that he was going to come back because he had like a tooth that was like going bad, that
rotting or
needed to be
something.
pulled. So they knew that he was going to be back. And it was only a matter of time before he came back. But they're like, no. We've spent a month here. We're good. And he came in the next day. What in the hell?
And then the button they left, because like the dentist was like, please, dear Lord, don't leave me alone unprotected with this man.
Yeah.
And they were like, cool, we'll give you an alarm button. And then the alarm malfunctioned.
They weren't good at their jobs.
No, we could say it. They were bad at their jobs. They were negligent.
Yeah.
And that's what I find scary.
Yeah, it was so scary because this guy got away many times when he could have been apprehended a lot earlier. And a lot of people, there were people that died, but there were a lot of victims out of it and it could have been avoided. There was like the shoe that they leaked to the press. Oh God, so many things. Insane.
Although I will say the way it ended felt like a cinematic movie because he was recognized on the bus and then a whole freaking neighborhood beat his butt down to the ground for him to be arrested. I was like, that is the neighborhood you want to live in.
It's so funny. I mean, it's not, but it was comical the way that whole situation played out.
Yeah, like if it weren't real life, it would be a great Three Stooges with murder.
Yeah.
Because that's how the cops handled it.
It was really hard to watch, but I couldn't stop watching.
Yeah. This is going to sound so jaded, but as a woman who has had to walk alone before having a car or living someplace where a car was necessary, you already know how dangerous it is to be in existence alone as a woman.
Yeah.
Those parts of the Night Stalker and Earons, those things like don't scare me because I'm already hyper vigilant as it is. It's the fact that the cops, the authorities that are meant to protect you and to prevent these things from happening more than once, the fact that those systems can outright fail while also be targeted to the wrong demographics at the same time. Like it's just, that's the part that terrifies me. That's the part that scares me, is that our systems are lies.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to reference this current case that's happening in the world right now with the girl, the influencer Gabby. We all know that that boyfriend should have been pulled in sooner. He should have been pulled in sooner, but because he's a white male, I think that they just had trust in him. I don't know what the police thought. Like, I don't know why
Which is
they didn't bring him in.
ridiculous because how many times do we hear, oh, it's always the partner, it's always the spouse.
Yeah. And just the fact that, I mean, there's just so many things that are wrong, but all the comments I've read on his Instagram are like, this gives me big Chris Watts energy. And I'm like, it does. It's so Chris Watts. And why they waited so long to even do anything, I don't know. And it's so terrifying. And that's why women are hyper vigilant.
Yes. We don't need to watch true crime to be hyper vigilant.
Yeah.
We're taught that early enough in our youths.
Yeah.
It's just watching true crime helps us work out the scenario escapes better.
Yeah, it does. Because if it wasn't for true crime, which, like I said, I don't watch a lot of it, but I do watch my occasional Dateline with my mom. If it wasn't for true crime, I wouldn't know to look so far back in my back seat. I wouldn't know to check under the car. I wouldn't know to have the key in the fact that I have to put the key in between my hands as a weapon, and especially now with the child, the way I have to hold her and make sure that she's in there, it wouldn't have happened without seeing that it was another woman who was thinking she was safe in her surroundings, and that's what got her killed. That kind of stuff. That's why I'm hyper vigilant. That's why my sister is hyper vigilant, and my poor daughter can't go anywhere without one adult right there on her.
Yeah, I know. I am to the point, even young, walking home alone from school, I figured out to look for reflections and shadows in everything. How many reflections have I seen now for the same block? How many shadows have I seen now for the same block? How much of that is like me turning in the direction of the sun changing? How much of that is something in my backpack rattling along with the same cadence of my footsteps versus someone else?
Right. Just in case there are footsteps behind you that are trying very hard to be quiet.
Or match your own.
Yeah. Just so many things that you have to be aware of as as a female, and it's just insane. And no, that was a very long tangent.
Yeah. That's the whole point of this episode, is to talk about how true crime is horror and
Hmm.
helps inspire the same lessons, the
Yeah.
same developmental milestones.
I mean, it's just crazy. It's so scary out there, and that's why I'm just happy to be home all the time, because at least I know I'm safe for another day. Like, thanks, COVID.
Let's move on, because
Yeah.
that one's a big bleh for me.
That was a big one. So the next one we're going to talk about is one that we both watched, and we were both like, I mean, yeah. So
the internal screaming that almost became outward screaming.
yes. Oh my God. Oh gosh, I'm so mad. So this is another Netflix. It's a mini series, and it's based on true events.
Right. It was dramatized.
So it's titled Unbelievable, and it was released in 2019 on Netflix. And it's based on an article titled An Unbelievable Story of Rape by T. Christian Miller and Ken Armstrong, and a book that they both wrote together titled A False Report. And it follows a serial rapist from 2008 to 2011. And the official summary for the miniseries is: after a young woman is accused of lying about a rape, two female detectives investigate a series of eerily similar attacks, of course, inspired by true events.
Real quick, I just want to talk about the actresses that played the cops, played by Toni Collette, which I have just adored her since I first saw her in United States of Terra. And then Merritt Wever, she is a phenomenal actress as well. I believe she was in the Phoebe Waller-Bridge show Run, which was so good. But they're great. I love them.
Yes. Where else was Merritt from? Because I know her from something else, and I can't figure out where it is. The Walking Dead. She was only in there for a little bit.
She was in Signs.
Oh yeah, she was behind the counter.
Oh.
She was the one at the pharmacy.
Oh my God, she's in a Charlie Manson movie too.
Ooh.
Called Charlie Says. Blech.
Ooh.
Okay, anyway. Well, Merritt, you did an amazing job.
She did an amazing job. So there are two things that bothered me about this miniseries.
Only two?
Yeah, I picked out the two really big ones.
Okay.
The first one is the hopelessness of the main character. I think her name was Marie. That she felt because her friends and her family believed the cops and that she was lying.
Not only did they believe the cops, but they distrusted her in such a hurtful way. I don't know, it was terrible to watch that, and to watch her shut down and completely shut everything out when she was getting to such a good point, you know?
I know.
You could see that her life was finally within her grasp to become this like freeing, independent, in control thing, and to have literally everyone. It was hard to watch.
It was so hard to watch. It was hard to watch the stupid male police officer have her retell her story over and over and over again. It was very clear that it was very hard for her to experience it over again. It was hard to see the system fail her. And it was really unbelievable, because I was like, she's a white woman. And I thought they would at least give her, I thought that every resource would be made available to her. And it was shocking to see that it wasn't, to see that even like the nurses weren't the best with her. It was really hard to see how she struggled to move on from that. And I don't understand how she was able to.
No, I don't either. Complete and utter respect and kudos to the woman that it's based on, because I don't understand. I can't fathom how someone could have kept moving forward in their life against all of that. It kind of also struck a chord with me with how much she must have already been shut down to the abuse and trauma before her life was kind of on track. And to hit, yes, just another obstacle, one more thing to knock her down and keep her down, was really, really hard to see.
It was really tough. The fact that her foster moms, she had one that she really, really liked, it seemed. And then she had one that was her last foster mom, who she liked, but not as much as the previous one. And to see them both talk about her and what you think they're worried for her well-being and they want her to move forward. But I don't know. I don't know that they truly cared for her. Maybe they did before, and maybe they learned to care for her. I don't know. I don't know their true story.
How much of that is a generational issue? Women of their age and of their time were kind of taught how to cope with that particular issue. I don't know. It just, I don't get me wrong, I didn't like the foster moms because they started out on her side. And then when the cops came with a different story, they, without even talking to her, they immediately were like, well, the authority figures that have no experience in this are clearly right because she's a foster child stereotype we must adhere to.
And then the fact that she was in the foster system, I don't know why that helped to discredit her too. And I didn't like that.
No, that should have given her story more credit.
Yeah.
Because children, and okay, y'all, this is one of my soapboxes. I will trust children to my last breath. I will always trust a child, a victim, because it just, especially if they have the nerve to come up to you and to tell you, to share with you, unless there is overwhelming evidence against it, I am not believing a soul above them.
Yep. Same. I think that it is our responsibility as the adults to give the children that safe space, even if it is a lie. Let's just put it out there that they are 100% lying about a grown up in their life. But where did that stem from? They may tell you a huge lie, but they're trusting you with some information. And it's our responsibility to listen to them and talk to them. You can tell most of the time when kids are lying. So
yeah, they're not good at it.
No, they're not. My child believes that her ears turn red when she lies because I put that in her psyche. So you can tell when they're lying. But at the same time, that doesn't mean that you discount what they're saying. You know, that's where you have that conversation with them and you get to the root of the problem. And we have to protect those kids at any chance we can and be their safe space because we are the adults who can do something about it. And that's why they're coming to us.
And also in this particular instance, this was a child that was placed in your care that you had for X amount of time. And then two strange men who just happen to be authority figures tell you a different story based on a lack of evidence. And you trust them? I don't understand how anybody's mind could work like that.
I know. It pulls me back into what our governor said with the whole abortion thing, which I'm fully against. I respect a woman's right to choose what's best for her body. And the fact that he's like, we're going to make sure all the rapes are taken care of. And
that girl...
I was like, you can't. Granted, this didn't happen in Texas, but that college kid who raped the girl by the dumpster, she had the nerve to come forward and he got off scot-free. If anything, they wanted her to pay him dues because he suffered at her hands. Like, no. You guys don't prosecute rapes and sexual assaults in this state.
There is a history of lack of repercussion for rapists. So our full ass government, this trying to find a way to say what I want to say without calling him some words and getting in trouble.
It's just crazy that we're in a state where people are like, my body, my choice when it comes to a mask and a vaccine, but it's not a woman's choice, her body, her choice when it comes to an abortion. It's so hypocritical and it's so stupid. And that's all I have to say about it.
It's not shocking. This idiot decided to have his mouth form the words, oh, but we'll solve rape too. And it's like, okay, but now the only laws I've seen here are controlling women. You don't have anything on the docket? No. Okay.
No, it's just something he said to appease some people, and that was it.
Yeah, to appease the conservative white women who still would reelect him. Coming November 2022, while he's up for reelection, let's get his ass out of the seats.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, exercise your right to vote. Your local library has voter registration cards.
Also, we do a lot of early voting.
Off of the tangent, which is a relatable tangent, I also hated and despised all the gaslighting, but it helped me learn subtle ways that this poor girl was gaslit, and I could look for it in my own life.
Yeah, it took me a while to finish Unbelievable as well, because there's only 4 episodes, because I would hear someone tell her something that was almost verbatim something I'd heard told to either me or someone in my life, and it would make my blood boil. You know, when you're reading and you hear people talk about their rage getting to the point where they feel bile in the back of their throat?
Yeah.
That's how mad I was. And I thought that I would just start screaming in my apartment while watching this.
Yeah. I was set off as a woman who has been gaslit in her life throughout her life and didn't realize it. But I was also in a rage thinking about this happening to my kid one day. Nope, not on my watch. But I have a friend who he keeps asking me, "Oh, do you want to get a gun?" And I'm like, I don't think so, because I think if something ever happened to my kid, I would
Mm.
shoot first and ask questions later. And she doesn't deserve me being in jail.
That's a solid point.
But the rage that it filled me with, and it took me about 2 weeks to watch it. In my defense, I was also watching Looney Tunes to just kind of get out of that mindset. But it left me heavy for a long time.
Yeah. One of the things that actually kind of upsets me, one of the many things that upsets me about this
Mhm.
is that I remember the case and I remember when she sued the city for
Mhm.
damages. And a lot of people were like, why would you even do that now? What's the point? And it's like, are you fucking kidding me? What's the
Yeah.
point? This woman deserves every penny they can afford to pay her and
Yeah.
more. She deserves to take the pension of the cop who took her life
Yeah.
from her.
She sure as hell did.
And one of my favorite scenes is when I think it was Merritt's character. There were two cops, one who was really
Mhm.
pushy and really abrasive,
Mhm.
and the other one who kind of just followed suit, but seemed like he
Yeah.
did it reluctantly. And she was talking to him, and he was like, I feel as if I have done my job wrong and that I have not been a good cop. I have not been a good public servant, and I feel like I should leave. And you could tell during this speech that he was giving her that he needed comfort, some type of excuse out of it. And she just dead ass looks at him and goes, yeah, you're probably right. You don't need to be in this position. And
Mhm.
she left. And I was like, thank you. Yes.
Yes.
Bro, retire early, get out, go to traffic duty, get a desk job. Your ass
Yeah.
does not need to be out there.
Yeah, process some paperwork, friend. Because yeah, she gave it to him and I was like, dude, shut the F up.
Yeah, right. You are
Like,
not going to get an apology from me. You're not going to get how could you have known? You're not going to get oh, I realized you would do better now. Like, that's not good enough.
yeah. What is it I say? Kick rocks, friend. Go all the way away.
Because I remember when either Tony Collette's character or Merritt's character calls to investigate the original case,
Mhm.
and he pulls it up and he goes, oh, I remember this. And he was like, don't waste your time. And she goes, really? I'd like to show you something. And he
Mhm.
goes to see their detailed and detective work
Mhm.
and all of the evidence everywhere. And you can see in his mind going, all of these are my fault because
Mhm.
I didn't do it right the first time. And he wanted them to tell him otherwise
Mhm.
as people who shared the blue line. And they were
Yeah.
like, no, you
No.
fuck up.
So one of the things that I loved about Merritt's character was she was just so chill and calm like the
Mm,
whole way through, and she was soft spoken, but she would tell you all about yourself.
girl, in such a way that I was like, man, that was delivered so coolly, but it was cold
Yeah.
as fuck. That was some ice right there.
Right? And I was like, I want to be her when I grow up. Like, please show me your ways. Cause I love superheroes, but I've never like idolized a superhero. I idolize her.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm much more like Toni Collette's character,
I
and kind of
loved her too.
abrasive and always with a
Mhm.
cup of coffee in my hand
Yeah.
and super over everybody else and doesn't play well with others.
Yeah.
But Merritt's character, yeah, I was like, she really came through.
I loved everything about her. I really learned a lot about gaslighting and
Mm.
recognizing it, which is something that I have tried so hard to learn about and recognize in my personal life. And I really learned a lot about gaslighting with this miniseries.
Yeah, I think that the two things to come out of this would be learning to recognize gaslighting, but also learning to trust yourself and to
Mhm.
trust the victim despite authority figures telling you otherwise.
Yeah. The girl who played Marie, she did such a good job
She
too.
really did.
I thought she was the character I thought she was playing herself and that she
Yeah.
was truly the victim.
The part that I found to be the would have been the final straw for me was when the home that she was staying at told her she couldn't live there anymore because she now was being called a liar
Mhm.
for calling rape. And I was like, that's really out of all the times in this poor child's life, you're gonna put her back out on the street. I couldn't. That was really hard to watch.
That was really hard because they are in the business of caring and helping foster kids reach adulthood and independence. And like, what about your mission? You know?
Yeah.
It was heartbreaking and hard to watch, but so good.
So good. I don't think I would ever watch it again unless it was to revel in the actress's character portrayal because they were phenomenal, all three
Mhm.
of them. But it
I
was
would
very
watch it
hard.
again because I have a running list going of docu-series and fictional series to watch watch with my kid, because one of the things that my mom did that I appreciate was she let me watch Lifetime movies, especially those that featured high school kids. And so I watched a lot of those true crime things as a kid. And that's why I didn't go out as a kid, because I was like, something bad's going to happen to me. And I plan on showing those to Aurora and having conversations about it, like 13 Reasons Why, which I was going to talk about it, but I choose not to. But that's another one that I think will have great conversations with my kid later on. So this is on my list, definitely, of something to show her.
That's smart, because you're right. It's a perfect talking point for her in like 8 years. Okay. Well, this is the part of the episode that is going to be real hard. So I apologize ahead of time, because we've talked about this, Jennifer and I, for months now. And one of the things that we wanted to do in this episode was provide real life examples of what you can experience and how you can learn from true crime and horror to be prepared for these issues. If you are unlucky like me to have these terrible things crop up in your life or in your peripheral life, because they didn't happen to me. Well, they did happen to me. Let's get into it. So I believe I've talked about it before, but when I was younger, I was granted full custody of one of my younger siblings. Our father had passed away. Her mother had kicked her out of the house. She'd gone to go stay with our brother for some time. And I remember driving home on the phone with her, and she was telling me, oh, I'm going to go stay with him because he said he'll take care of me. And I remember something in the back of my brain going, no, you have to stop this now. She can't go. Because like he had slowly started to change after we had lost our father. He had been dating a wonderful woman that he screwed up that relationship and started dating this other woman who was just one of the most disgusting excuses for a human being you'll ever meet. And I was concerned for my sister's life and safety. Well, then I lost contact with her for 2 years. Didn't hear a word. I remember, oddly enough, weeks before all of this happened, talking to a friend of mine at work and was telling him, I think my sister's dead. I haven't heard from her, and I don't trust that she was kept safe. I don't know what happened. And then I got off work a couple weeks later, was supposed to go to a movie with a friend, and it was probably 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock after the store closed. And I had a voicemail from my cousin, and all she said in the voicemail was, you have to call me back. You have to get your sister. She's in trouble. And I was like, okay. So I put down the phone, and I didn't call back my cousin right away, because I remember thinking, my mom has just gotten the clear from chemo. She is theoretically cancer-free. I don't want to do this. I can't do this. I just got back to a point in my life where it wasn't ending because my mom was sick.
Yeah.
But I was like, okay, let me just woman up, call back my cousin and see what I can do. So I call her, and I find out that my sister has been arrested. Bail has already been paid by my brother's mom, but she only paid it with stipulation that they only release my sister to me. But I had to race to get down there to Galveston to get her, because they thought my brother and this other woman were on their way to get her first. They didn't want my sister to be back in his custody. So I went and I picked up my friend anyway, because I was like, I can't do this alone.
Right.
And she went to high school with me. She knows what's up. And she got in the car, and I was like, hey, change of plans. We're not going to the movies. We're going to Galveston to go get out of jail. And she was like, all right, let's go. Because those are some ride or die friends, y'all.
Yeah.
And we drive to Galveston, and the whole way there, I'm talking with my friend out the plans for moving forward and the scenarios for moving forward, because I don't know what I'm getting myself into.
Right.
And I get to the bail bonds. I have the evidence here, y'all. I have a folder, very thick folder. It's the second folder I've had, because the last one fell apart, of the evidence that I have accumulated against my brother over the years. And the first one is Gulf Coast bail bonds, and it is in Galveston. The address on this card was not the right address. I had to go somewhere else. And the amount of bond was $1,000. We had to check in every month on the 27th, and our bond runner was Stephen.
Wow.
And this is the room key to the room where she was arrested, It was in Town Suites. And I went to go grab her to get her. And I have never been given such an aggressive cold shoulder before in my life. But as soon as I said who I was there for, all of the bail bondsmen rushed me and came at me, big, huge people, and were like, show us your ID right now. Or like, you can't be like this. And I was like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
So I gave my ID
Mhm.
and they're like, okay. So, and then they quizzed me. They're like, all right, you're not so-and-so, right? And I was like, no, I'm not. I need to get her before they come here. They're like, okay, because we were just on the phone with her. Your brother and her are on their way and they'll be here in an hour. And I was like, oh God. So they released and processed my sister as fast as they could. And found out later from them that our brother and this woman showed up within minutes of us leaving. And it's the dead of night, like 2:00 in the morning.
Oh my God.
When my sister saw me for the first time, she was as if she was one of those dolls that you used to like push a button and all of their joints disappeared and they just crumbled. And she
Oh.
fell to the ground in the arms of the bondsperson, fell into my arm. I scooped her up.
Mm.
She was just bones and skin, and took her to the car and put her in the back seat. And she was so shut down. And I remember thinking, okay, I'm going to take home my friend. I can't go home yet.
Mhm.
I clopened. So I closed and then had to open the next day.
Yeah.
And my shift was starting in a few hours. So what I did was I took her to my best friend's house and explained the situation. And my best friend took her for the day,
Mhm.
gave her a shower, fed her, clothed her, let her sleep. And I showered at my best friend's and then went to work. And told my mom that I had spent the night at my best friend's. And I got off work that next day, that same day. And we went on from there. We found a way to live and survive. We had to leave my mom's house because our brother was threatening us.
Mhm.
He was threatening, well, take the back. He wasn't threatening us yet. He was just threatening our sister because he didn't know where she was yet. He knew that his mother had paid bail, but he didn't know where she was. And I knew that I had to move us someplace where he couldn't find her.
Mhm.
But my high school would not take her because I was only a child myself,
Right.
or barely out of being a child myself, and they wouldn't take the court order from Galveston.
Yeah.
So I moved us back to the small town she's from and enrolled her back into school because she'd been truant, and took her to her court dates, made sure everything was okay, was granted custody. Oh, first had to call the DA of Galveston County and ask to have her court date moved because it was too close to our brother's girlfriend's court date. And I didn't want us to be in the same vicinity. And I
Yeah.
explained the situation. I said it was a danger, a threat to life. We had to have the court date moved up if possible.
Mhm.
Thankfully, they worked with us, so they moved up the court date. Was granted custody, had like a little, before we were even in front of the judge, I remember sitting at that table with behind me, and I was, head tucked down with the DA and was like, look, I need you to understand what this situation is and what I promise it will look like going forward.
Yeah.
And he kind of looked at me and looked at her, and he was like, he's like, I'm trusting you as a young adult.
Mhm.
The first thing that happens in her life that goes wrong, and if she gets arrested, you're in trouble. And I was like, that's fair. I will let you have her if she
Yeah.
fucks up while in my custody. I was like, but I promise you it won't happen. And he
Mhm.
was like, okay. So then he turned to the judge when it was our turn, and he recommended that I get granted full custody. And from what I heard, my brother's girlfriend's court date did not go well because they expected my sister to be there.
Mhm.
And there was a lot of drama in the court. And I even have here her court case number so that I could keep track of it online. I have the storage facility here that our brother kept all of our sister's personal effects in and wouldn't give her access to. So like family albums,
Yeah.
clothes, things that she needed. And her Social Security check from survivor's check from our father passing away had been cut off due to abuse.
Wow.
So I had to go get that reinstated too, but I was still working. So my mom, the angel that she was, had never changed her name from my father's last name. So when I had custody of my sister, who also had the same last name, my mom took her to the Social Security office and basically said that she was the mother and that she was there to get the Social Security benefits reinstated. And they just looked at the IDs, saw the matching names, and were like, cool, whatever. And like reinstated the Social Security stuff. And we got finances after that, which I actually have here the approval letter from Social Security office that our mom had helped us. Well, my mom had helped us. That was the other thing, is that my mom was my mom. She had no reason to do that. This is how much money was sitting in her account to be taken that they had cut off because our brother had abused it.
Wow.
So got all of that taken care of thanks to my mom. And we hounded the storage facility, and the lady who worked in the storage facility was like, all right, look, the second they stop paying for the storage facility, we'll call you. And if you can be here, then everything is yours. We won't put it up for auction. And that's what we did. I took a day off from work.
Yeah.
I drove down to Baytown and got all of her stuff back.
Wow.
Now we're going to get into talking about some of the threats he made, because at the time it was very like I'm jittery right now. I'm shaking because the adrenaline is running through me, thinking about the things that I had to do to protect this child.
Yeah.
And
you're still a child yourself, mind you.
It was barely legal.
Yeah.
And this is the officer who had our case.
Wow.
In Galveston County. And our brother was threatening us. So at the time that all of this was happening, I knew my reality. I understood my reality.
Yeah.
But as the years passed and my sister graduated and I moved on and she started to live her life, become an adult, I began to think about how terrible that time was and how I didn't let my mom help me, how I didn't reach out to any friends, how there was one person I trusted to help me get through this. And I began to think, and our brother to this day will tell anybody who listens that I ruined his life, that I ruined his reputation, that I dragged him through the mud, that I am the villain of his story. And it got to the point where I started to think, did I blow everything out of proportion? Did I overreact? Like, was it as bad as I thought it was at the time? Or was I a scared child like he claimed I was? Well, in preparation for this episode, I went back and I reread through my file that I had not seen in 10 years.
Yeah.
Just to sort of like recenter my beliefs. So I will be reading verbatim from my brother's public blogs from June 6, 2007 until, let's see. Oh, actually, as recently as my mom passing away, because the harassment continued then.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's a whole other fun aspect of this trauma. So our brother is talking about in his blog that life has not been great lately. There has been some bullshit in his life, but him and his partner are still happy, that he is estranged from his little sister. And he says, she has made the mistake of listening to my ignorant mother and refuses to listen to common sense. This was before he knew. This was all he knew, that his mother bailed her out. She thinks that I have betrayed her like the rest of her family has. I have done no such thing. If she were a sensible person, she would call me and talk to me herself, but she doesn't want to. She wishes to remain stubbornly ignorant herself. So I've sitting here waiting for a response from another member of my family, and it has been several days. I'm getting impatient. I'm very close to going and breaking into my mother's house and dragging my little sister out by her hair and taking her back to what we have that serves as a home. Yes, that's right. I'm ready and prepared to break several laws. If I have to remove her with force and destroy my mother's house in the process, I will.
Oh
So
my God.
I was watching this unfold online and I began to panic.
Yeah.
And I didn't want his mother to be in danger because our sister wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I logged into our sister right there next to me. And we talked out how to reply to this to get him to back off from hurting his mother.
Yeah.
So I replied as our sister. I'm not about to reply as myself because like that would have given me away.
Right.
So I replied as our sister. I have contacted you and let you know I'm somewhere safe. There are text messages to prove it, and you are only estranged from me because of, in brackets here, your partner. I'm not going to use her name.
Yeah.
I am not listening to your mother. She has nothing to do with this. Do not threaten her. She's your mother. I am acting on my own, of my own free will. I am safe. Believe it. I have a roof over my head, clothes, and food, my own room even, which is better than this home you speak of. Sorry, I'm getting like indigestion now.
I mean, I have to. I
Okay.
mute myself very often. So, okay.
People who care for me and watch over me, I am under house suspension, but it is better to be protected than watched. And protection is what you promised Dad because of your partner. You have failed miserably at holding this family together. Stealing my money behind your back is just the tip of what she's done to me. You yourself have even hit her, something you said you'd never do. She tried to sell me to your friends, tried to get me to work at the Ritz because, quote, they need a redhead. Threatened to throw away my social security card and birth certificate. How is this helping and protecting me? A hotel room is no home. I will be 18 soon. I'm getting replacement copies of my social security card and birth certificate. I am to get a job as well. I will provide for myself. I obviously cannot trust my safety in family hands at the moment. Please do not contact me until you have dropped the. Oh. You're my brother, and I still love you and believe you can be a good person again. This was what wanted me to type out.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Because my sister, for many years, even after this, still believed that our brother was our brother.
Mm-hmm.
This means that I would prefer you to stop trying to find me, quit threatening my friends and our family. It will get you nothing but a restraining order. All the courts need is for an incident report to be written up and a restraining order can be filed. They do not know where I am or who I'm with. You are only hurting them by harassing them. They have no knowledge to give up. One day in the future, when you've got a steady job and a life you can be proud of, and not one you consider shitty, because that's what he said,
Mm-hmm.
then and only then will I want to be around you again. That's where I fucked up. So the next reply, I can barely read it because I want to cry. It sent ice through my veins when we were given this reply. He says, I was there watching the text messages, you idiot. Half of what my partner said to you, I told her to say. And I know you didn't write this either. You are incapable of writing this coherently. So, whoever you are with, either my mother or Sedina, for your sake, I hope that one of those is where you are, wrote it for you. And you can't file a restraining order against me. Sorry to disappoint you on that one. But because of your continued ignorance, when I do get my hands on you, I will beat the shit out of you. And if anyone gets in my way of bringing you back here, they'll get some too. I'm very angry now with you. This has gone on too long. You are in very big trouble. All you had to do was call and talk to me. My partner is not the problem. Yes, she did some stupid things, but the whole reason the two of you got into trouble was because of you. If not for you, she would have never been motivated to become a shoplifter.
Oh my god.
By the way, our brother's 34 at this point.
Oh my god.
Yes, I'm not even old enough to drink. And our sister is even younger, can barely drive.
Wow.
You always were one before, saying that she was always a shoplifter, which was not untrue. You forget how much you talked to me about what you had been doing before you came to stay with us, which, pause, I just want to point out that part of the reason why she was in such a bad situation was because her mother had kicked her out of the house after her father passed away. She was literally sleeping in her graveyard. Okay. And I know she didn't try to sell you. That's stupid. Please. I also know you have lied to me on several occasions. I was blinded by how much I cared about you. I couldn't see it because of how focused I was on other problems. I didn't want to believe my little sister would lie to me, but you did. And I didn't need my partner to tell me either. Yeah, sure, she tried to tell me things about you. I know how to read lies. I pick through what makes sense. You and she both are terrible liars. It just took me longer to see you that way. That's fine. I'll never trust you again. My partner isn't going anywhere unless I send her there.
Oh my god.
You've heard me say it before. Believe me when I say this to you now. You do not want to see how close I can get to becoming what our father was. You assume far too much, and those you are with make the same mistake of underestimating you. If you care at all about yours and their safety, you will call me. Posted Saturday, June 16th, 2007 at 3:24 p.m.
Oh my god.
There's more. Y'all, this happened for almost 2 years. This is my life for almost 2 years.
That is insane. Like that one entry, his response. Like, I mean, kudos to your sister who now I say is in a definitely better place. Like, oh my god. Oh my god.
Yeah. So about 2 weeks later, Friday, June 29th, 2007, once again, this is directly from his blog, taking care of a few annoyances. Well, it was decided that my partner would have to take a plea of deferred education. This is for that whole ridiculous bunch of crap. The judge that, oh wait, I'm not going to read all that stuff about her. He's talking about the bail and jail time and community service she has to do. And he says, before she went in, however, we looked up some info on a couple people that are the cause of these troubles. I have 2 addresses to go pay a visit to while she is away. I've assembled a very interesting device using our compressed air cannon. I mixed a very interesting and simple chemical cocktail in some baby food jars. That when set aflame will create a nasty fire that will burn through just about anything. The air cannon can launch one of these things about 100 feet easy. Fired from the distance of the street, there will be more than enough pressure to put one of those little fireballs through a plate glass window. Oh my god. When the jar breaks on impact, the liquid inside will spread, setting fire to everything it touches instantly. The exciting thing is that once the fire starts, because of the nature of the chemical mixture, it can't be put out. It just spreads and spreads. It's the 4th of July early this year. Okay. There's a lot more. There's more threats on September 25th, 2007, where he says, he's talking to our sister, you seem to be a little oblivious of the dangerous waters you are currently swimming in. You fucked up and you know what you did. I wasn't going to say it because I was hoping you would do the smart thing and own up to what you did, but you are a child and an ignorant one at that. You don't know any better. So finally, I'm going to say it, and this will only dig your hole even deeper. This is his version of what happened the night I went to pick her out. When I was coming to bail you out, I called and asked the bail bondsman how long it would take. They told me that my mother had posted your bail. I had given my partner very specific instructions, and I do believe I told you the same thing once before. Do not call my mother. But you did. That would have been the only way she would have known you were in jail. You called her and she came and bailed you out. Before that, I had asked a friend a favor to put up the $300 to get my partner out. Side note, he left his sister in jail and bailed out his partner first.
Oh my God. Like, oh my God.
I had less than $100 on me at the time. I still owe that friend. So now he's also blaming her for okay, sorry. The same day my partner got out, we and your boyfriend drove around to various pawn shops to pawn the last of what we had to try and post your bail. It was then that I found out that if your idiot mother had signed that paper to give guardianship rights over to me, I could have gotten you out for under $50. But no, she never did, as you will remember. And it didn't matter that I had the same last name as you or that I was your brother. They wouldn't let me get you out that day for so little cost. I would have to get bail posted, a $200 fee. We didn't have that much. As I said, we had less than $100 after pawning my games, blah, blah, blah. Please didn't take from the hotel we were living in, blah, blah, blah. Because you told them they were there. So he says, day 3, she's been in jail. Our sister's been in jail 3 days longer than his partner at this point.
Wow.
And he says, day 3, once I found someone to co-sign the bail bond and someone else to put up the rest of the money, I found out you were already going to be bailed out by my mother. Did you try to call us after you got out? No. I called you several times and left messages on your phone. Did you call back? No. Because I told her not to.
Right.
You waited a week and started sending these childish text messages to my partner's phone, which, yes, she was doing that behind my back. And I immediately, when I found out, because she got scared, I took her phone from her. You wouldn't call and talk to me and explain to me why you had called my mother to bail you out instead of waiting for me to get you out, or why you had waited a fucking week to contact me. Then you accused me of screwing you over and obviously didn't care about how I felt in the matter. If you had only called me that night and talked to me, all this would be over and things would be fine. I was even going to let you stay at your boyfriend's, maybe even somewhere else, until we got another place. That is why all of your things from the hotel were at his house. They weren't. They were at the storage facility.
Yeah.
I made a promise to take care of you, and well, that takes a whole new meaning now. I gave you several chances to come forward and make up for the mistakes you made, but you wanted, and then it gets a little blurry because there's tear stain on the paper.
Oh my God, Zadina.
So I can't make out what that says anymore.
Yeah.
But I wanted to something, make stupid comments and have Sadina reply on the blogs for you. I know where you are. The only reason I haven't come there yet to retrieve you is because of how much I care about those people, even though Sadina, sorry, the tear stain, even though Sadina has also failed me. A long time ago with her indifference when I would have done anything for her. Okay. Now, if you see me, your best bet will be to run the opposite direction and hide from me. There's no way to tell what sort of mood I will be in or what I will do. You fucked up and you will pay for it. And honestly, there's more.
Yeah. Oh my God. Like, y'all, you can't see it, but Sadina's got like pages and pages and pages of public blog entries.
Yeah, public blog entries. That was all from LiveJournal. The ones coming up about my mom are from Facebook, also public.
Yeah.
But they're just, I mean, there's just more threats. There's just so many more threats.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and I just want to say, when you are concerned about a sibling and you want to bring them home, that's not the way to go about it. Threatening other family members and gaslighting them, and oh my God, it's just all the wrong things to do to get someone to come home.
Yeah. I'm not even going to go into the stuff about my mom today because, sorry, indigestion, because that stuff is very upsetting to me because we just don't have time for it. I'll save that trauma for another day.
Oh my gosh. Like, That, oh my gosh.
And that was the thing, is that rereading it, I was like, okay, so I didn't imagine him
No.
threatening his mother's life and him dragging out Ashley by her hair. I didn't imagine that. He literally said it.
Hmm.
I also did not imagine the threats of beating the life out of, or beating the shit out of her,
Hmm.
and the fire threat, the arson threat. Didn't imagine that. Cool. All of that was,
The
yeah,
threat of like you don't want to see how close I am to dad, and that like in a sense of violence, like that's freaking scary. I'm sorry, that is scary.
yeah. And I think the other thing too that gets me, so this is where it ties into all, well, not all, but a lot of those true crime things. The perpetrator turning all of it around to the victim, and the victim that's minor as well, and a
Hmm.
minor that was in their care, and
Yeah.
telling them that they were responsible for the decisions being made in the household.
Hmm.
That is the biggest pile of horse shit in the world. I don't care
Yeah.
what your situation is. No child
Yeah.
should be the crux of the bad decisions of your life. You're an adult. You are 34, sir. I
Yeah.
am currently 34. And in no universe would I allow a child in my household or in my care make decisions. The man is almost 50. And to this day, he will still tell anybody willing to listen that it is all my fault and that I am the villain.
Oh my gosh. He's a narcissist, and a very dangerous one, I might add. That's just insane. Like I would never. I had a friend who was in an abusive relationship, and not once in my knowledge did any one of her family members or myself come at her with like negativity or the threat of violence to get her to get out of that situation. It was always like, we understand what you're going through. You don't deserve it. You are deserving of a house full of love. And we know you have the courage to get out of it. What do you need from us? Like, like just encouraging and positivity and love. Oh my gosh, talk about a villain.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about a villain. And a villain that is so good at gaslighting that over the years, the further I got from the incident, I did begin to question myself.
Oh my god. Like some of the things that he said, I think will be burned in my brain forever.
Mhm.
And to even think about you like questioning yourself, like, you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
like, because those words, I can't forget some of those words that he's like that first
Yeah.
response. Oh my god. That was
Yeah.
really scary.
That I thought I was going to throw up when I read it, because I remember thinking, I fucked up. He's right.
Mhm.
I wrote it in a way that wouldn't have sounded like her. And now he knows exactly where she is. And
Mhm.
now my mom's in danger.
Yeah.
And his van, there Jennifer, there were times when we were home, I'd spend whatever free time I had with our sister at home. And
Mhm.
this one time she was walking by the big bay window and she fell to the ground and she ducked down and she was looking up through the window. And I was like, are you okay? Like, I was getting used to these incidences.
Mhm.
And she goes, I just saw their van. And I was like, what? And she goes, he doesn't remember which house it is. And I just saw the van. And I was like, fuck, we have to leave.
Oh my god.
Mind you, my mom still doesn't know about any of the threats at
Yeah.
this point. She didn't know about any of the threats. She didn't
Yeah.
know how bad it was.
Oh my god.
The only thing to be worse than that in my life was losing my mom.
That's just no child, no barely legal adult should ever deal with anything remotely close to that. And the fact that you had all this stuff going on with your mom at the same time, and oh my god, it's just insane. Like I have no words because it's just like I can only imagine the pain that you have, because it's painful for me to just go back and listen, just go back and think about what you've read. And I always go back and I listen once you do the final edit, and so like I'm already having anxiety thinking about going forward and listening to this.
Oh shit, I didn't even think about how much I'm gonna have to listen to that over and over while I edit. Okay, so y'all, if this episode's rather long, it's because I did not edit this last half very well.
Yeah. Which, yeah, if you don't need to. Oh my gosh, like, I mean, I'm proud of you and I'm proud of your sister for coming out of it and how well you guys have come out of it, because I don't know. I honestly don't know if I would have come out of it. I feel like I would have tried to numb the pain with like
Mm,
alcohol or something. I'm just being completely honest, because that's supposed to be, a brother is supposed to be like a protector, and you're put in his care. And I just like, I like, my mind is like going through scenarios in what she probably dealt with in his care before it got to the point where she was arrested, you know? And like, I'm getting upset because I'm like, who was there protecting her? No one was protecting her, and she deserved to be protected.
mhm.
Just so sad.
Yeah. It was a rough time, and it was hard and it was terrible, but
Hmm.
we had, and I probably messed it up worse by not going to people that I could have trusted, but my mom was fresh out of chemo, was still bald, and I was
Hmm.
not going to bring her in.
Yeah.
She barely survived cancer.
Yeah.
Um and it was in remission, it wasn't gone.
Yeah.
Uh and I didn't tell any of our friends because my friends were primarily in college. They had all just started college.
Yeah.
Some of them were in states away. My best friend was in a state away. She just happened to be, this occurred during a break, and my best
Yeah.
friend just happened to be home.
Wow.
And I don't, people have asked me before, like, how did you, because like I had everything wrapped up legally within like the start of the school year.
Yeah.
And it's because of horror and it's because of true crime. I
Mm.
was prepped and primed for this incident,
Yeah.
and I never knew.
Right. Oh my gosh. This is crazy. And like, it like, no amount of psychological horror that you get me to read will ever be as horrific as what you just read to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I've read some terrible ones. Like, there's like, I've read some terrible ones and I'm like, Sadina. but but
But now you get it.
I get it. I completely wholeheartedly get it. And I feel like anything I read now will be tame,
Mm.
because that's just terrible.
Yeah, that was a snapshot, guys. That was what I read you, June to September of
Mm,
2007. You know, like I didn't leave. I mean, we were in that hellhole, experiencing that almost daily,
yeah.
definitely weekly. And it and there was abuse before that because
Mhm.
it led to that, you know, in
Right.
her life and in mine.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, and then the fact that he continues to try to make me out to be a villain. It finally got to the point where after we lost our mom, I remember sitting back, getting off the phone with him and being like, fuck, if I'm his villain, like I'm Ursula. Put me in, I'm Maleficent. Put me in it. I'm a villain. If
I
that's what
could
I need
see
to
you being
be.
like, "Oh, he wants a villain. I will give him a villain." I could just see you being like putting on your earrings in the mirror, looking at yourself like, "Okay, friend, like we will go toe to toe if you need me to."
Right. That was exactly what happened. And
Yeah.
I just realized it was exactly 10 years later because my mom passed in June of 2017.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah. So 10 years later, I was like, fuck it. If I'm your villain, I am going to be a villain.
Yeah. I mean, and grief will do that too. Because when you're grieving, like I was literally talking about it with a coworker the other day, when you're in a state of grief, there's nothing that anyone can tell you to help you get out of it. And you
Mm-hmm.
do some very questionable and dangerous shit. Like, I feel bad for him, but um because I can like, because you tell me some things off air and I'm just like, oh, she's not one to be effed with.
Yeah, no.
And I just think like, mm, glad I'm not you, bro.
And that's the thing too, is that like even having this folder that's what, an inch thick
Mhm.
of evidence and case stuff against him, it's still okay. And so this is going to be shocking, but on this side of the folder, those are all the letters he wrote to me before I was like 10. Just
Oh
the
my
letters and the artwork. You know, he was a very good brother for a long time. He
Yeah.
made things, letters, things like that. And I keep them. I keep them in the back of that file folder because I
Mhm.
don't want them to be the first thing I see.
Yeah.
But I feel like I need to remember that it can happen to anyone.
Yeah. It can happen to anyone, and it can be anyone who
Mhm.
turns that way, which is something we see all the time in horror and true crime. And
Yep. Well, that was my story, part of my story, a
art, yeah.
snapshot, if you will, of my
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, that was a little Polaroid picture of your story. Because that
Yeah.
file is big, y'all.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna go have a drink now because like I wasn't old enough to drink during the time, so now I can drink.
I'm gonna have a drink as well. Like,
Are you gonna go hold Aurora?
yes, I'd be like, oh my god, my baby. Like, let someone try that with you. Like, let them try. Because, oh gosh.
That reminds me, I also want to say the reason why I told this story, for as traumatic as it is to relive it and for as much of an adrenaline rush. I mean, I suffered from hypervigilance at the least for
Mm-hmm.
years after this, well over a decade.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to talk about it because people don't hear about it enough in real life.
Yeah.
We read a lot about it in fiction,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that people need to feel that they can make a connection to a real person,
Mm-hmm.
that if there's ever anybody that needs someone to talk to or to understand or to just listen,
Mm-hmm.
that there are people like me that are here for it.
Mm-hmm. One thing I will note is that when we started, like, because we've known each other for a good hot minute now,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't known each other. And so I think in doing the podcast, I've started to realize a little bit of our personalities. I'm very scatterbrained. I'm very like last minute. You are very on top of things. And I think you've never gotten out of that, because I think you
No.
had to be on top of things with that situation.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it became so normal to you that you're just so on top of things, whereas I'm just like, just lackadaisical. It works because we're the yin and the yang.
Yes. And I think you're right because so shortly after leaving Texas,
Mhm.
after my sister graduated high school, and I gave her the choice. I was like, you're now an adult. I
Mhm.
hope that in the short time I've had you, I've given you the resources and the tools to make better decisions.
Mhm.
And you can either come with me to
Mhm.
Indiana, where I'm going to be with Becca, or you can stay here and try to
Mhm.
make a go of it on your own. And
Yeah.
she decided to stay there, which in hindsight was the only choice she was going to make because
Yeah.
she was not okay. I did my best, but she was not okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes you stay where you are traumatized because it's all
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And I was in Indiana and I was working multiple hours. I kept picking up extra shifts. And my boss one day was like, how are you here every day outperforming everyone while
Mhm.
also working multiple shifts?
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, it's super easy. And like, I couldn't understand why he couldn't understand. And he was
Mhm.
like, I don't get it. And I was like, well, what you have to do is that you have to understand there's only 24 hours in a day. So you start micromanaging your time and you tell yourself in this 30 minutes, you'll do this. And if this is how long this takes, then you do it this way. And
Mhm.
then, and then you just like break down everything into these like really small micromanagement hours and time slots. I was like, and then you can accomplish anything. And I remember him kind of looking at me weird. And I remember thinking how sensible it sounded.
Mhm.
And 10 years later, I now realize that was just trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, it was your traumatic response to no, it wasn't your traumatic response. It was your response to trauma and then fixating and transferring it into regular everyday life once the trauma, which it wasn't behind you, but once it was behind you,
Mm-hmm.
theoretically speaking.
Right. And that's one of the scarier, more damaging things of hypervigilance is that it's not full-blown PTSD, but it's harder to pinpoint, it's harder to diagnose, and it's, in my experience, very difficult to shake.
Yeah. I mean, but you've handled it very well.
Well, thank you.
I mean, you're a very well-rounded human being, I might add.
I appreciate it.
And you are on top of your shit, ma'am.
But now, of course, I'm coming down on the crash, so I think we're probably going to say goodbye.
Yeah, we've run about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I'm going to need to have a stiff drink and
Yeah.
to prepare myself to edit this.
I agree. Well, we hope y'all enjoy. We know it was difficult. It started off kind of light.
Yeah.
And we ended out strong. But I think it was worth it, especially with what we're about to cover with the 31 days. We cover some of them are very light, some of them we don't like, some of them are very heavy. The one I'm most looking forward to is when we get a little bit more into Sedina's psyche. But this time we make her blush.
Be a lot of stuttering in that one, I'm sure.
I can't wait. All right. Bye, y'all.
Bye, guys. If you liked listening to us ramble on about horror, subscribe to our podcast and tell your friends. And if you would like to follow us on social media, you can find us on Instagram or Facebook at LLOTL Podcast.
Check out our website by going to lastlibraryontheleft.com. Be sure to visit our About Us page to discover our 2 truths and a lie. Or, if you'd like to send us an email, you can reach us at somethingwicked@lastlibraryontheleft.com.